Now, the assassination of the late United States conservative political activist and one of the U.S. President Donald Trump's main supporters, Charlie Kirk, last week was received with mixed reactions globally. To many, Kirk was a controversial figure with a talent to energize young conservatives. Here in South Africa, his supporters will remember him as a steadfast character of unwavering faith. But how much did Charlie Kirk's beliefs and ideologies impact his followers? To talk a little bit more about this, we are joined by Dr. Bob Wekesa. He's a director at the Wits University's African Center for the Study of the United States. Dr. Wekesa, thank you very much for joining us. It's good to have your voice on this particular story that we've been covered, and a very big global story because, you know, until last week, many people perhaps had not even heard the name Charlie Kirk and how influential he has been in the United States and the world. Well, I think that's all changed. That's all anyone seems to be talking about now.
Thanks for having me, and glad to be in conversation with you. Indeed, he was a big figure in U.S. conservative politics, essentially the far right. Kind of an influencer who energized the base, as it's called, the Make America Great Again, also known as MAGA movement. And I think the eulogies that have come from Republican politicians indicates that clearly he helped a great deal in the re-election of Donald Trump. He has been seen many times with in conversation with Donald Trump, in podcasts, and it essentially created a movement out of Turning Point USA across the continent. I mean, across of course, the US is almost a continent itself because it touches Atlantic to Pacific, and across that nation, he had bases, stations, particularly focused on the youth. So indeed, it is. He was a major figure in the conservative politics of the United States, the far right.
Absolutely. I mean, you talk about that, the far right-wing ideologies. Certainly, that. I mean, his base was causing debates. I mean, that's really what he went, particularly to these universities and youth-centered places where he would talk to differing beliefs, what he believed in, and people would disagree with him, and not everybody agreed with him. In fact, he had a base that were very angry with his beliefs and what he had to say. So what do you think that his death has done? Has it given power to his beliefs? Has it divided people even more? What do you think the repercussions of this is?
No, I think it has divided more than it has brought the U.S. as a nation together. First of all, it has raised the question of gun violence in the United States. Because beyond just the killing of him as an influential figure, nearly 20,000 people are killed through gun shooting across the U.S. annually. That's a lot for any country. Here in South Africa, we think of gun violence as a problem, but it is a problem on steroids in the U.S. Now, the National Rifle Association in the U.S. will argue that this is an isolated case because they are promoters of gun ownership, which is constitutionally protected. But in fact, just in June, we had the killing of a senator in Minnesota, and again in Minnesota, still only in August, we had the killing of 2 school children. And so that's one issue that then is coming out clearly because the Democrats have been arguing, and anti-gun violence activists have been arguing that we need to control this. And so that's one issue. The other one is that it has divided the left and the right even more sharply. Some people were actually celebrating his death, and some of them have either been fired or notified about the possibility of action. These include people like pilots, school teachers, media personalities, one from MSBN, for instance. And so I think it kind of sharpens the differences, kind of decenters two entities rather than bringing them together. I think the broader issue is just how vulnerable the U.S. politics is now on to issues to do with violence, gun shooting, reacting to political debates through killings. as it were. Yeah. And in this case, the young man who actually killed Kirk was just a 22-year-old Republican, in fact, who was opposed to that, who was opposed to his rhetoric, his way of countering things like, freedom of choice in terms of, say, the abortion debate, issues to do with race relations, and so forth. Yeah. So I think this is an inflection point for the U.S., and it taps into the disability that we see in the U.S., instability, in fact, in the U.S. political scene.
Yeah, and he really did. I mean, he had incredibly strong views that a lot of people disagreed on. I mean, whether it came to race relations, whether he spoke about religious intolerance and talking particularly with regard to Israel and Palestine and his stance on that. Also talking about LGBTQI communities plus. I mean, these are all of the things that he divided people a lot on. But let's move it back home here to South Africa. I mean, there were organizations such as AfriForum Youth who said that they will remember him as a man of unwavering faith and a very steadfast character. I imagine they had a relationship with him in some form. Do you know anything, AfriForum's association with Charlie Kirk?
Not that I know directly, but clearly there's a confluence of perspectives and opinion and shared views between AfriForum and Turning Point USA, which Kirk, only 31 at his death, founded in 2007, I believe. And so it is clear that they will associate with that perspective of attacking anything, democratic, anything to do with cooperation across races, kind of building one common society. Essentially focusing on issues that divide, as some of which you ably touched on. I think AfriForum will have an ally in Charlie Kirk, because their view is that as minorities in South Africa, they are being targeted on the basis of race. And this is essentially what Kirk was doing in the US, but from a different perspective, because the white are majority there, the blacks minority in that context. So I think they are ideological allies. This is AfriForum and Turning Point USA. They will see things from the same perspective, and therefore I'm not at all surprised that the white minority Africana kind of groupings in South Africa will be greatly in support of Kirk and will therefore mourn his loss. And actually that will feed into their messaging on all these issues with Africana killings in South Africa as alleged and related matters.
All right, we leave it there. Dr. Bob Wekesa, who's a director at the Wits University African Center for the Study of the United States, talking to us about the influence of the late US conservative activist Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated last week. Of course, his public memorial service expected to be held on the 21st of September. The US president saying that he will attend that. That's going to be held in Arizona at the stadium in Arizona.